Dominate the Diamond Show. I'm Duke Baxter with Steve Nicorak. We're here at Zone Sports Academy, and we have a great lineup of topics for you today. The purpose of this show is to educate coaches, motivate players, and to help everybody, giving them the tools they need to dominate the diamond on and off the field. We have three awesome topics today. Topic number one is going to be how to run the perfect practice. Topic number two is going to be expectations of playing time. And topic number three is about how to communicate with your players. So we're getting ready. We're going to dive in. Coach Steve's going to start us off with how to run the perfect practice.
Yeah, guys, this is a great topic and something that we really started Dominate the Diamond with in mind. And it's how to run the perfect practice, what we like to call the perfect practice, but make the most efficient time of your field space, of your coaches, and the limited amount of time that you have during the week to run a practice with your team. And we understand that you guys are all volunteers. You're parents, you have full-time jobs, you have careers, and you coach your son or daughter's baseball or softball team as a volunteer parent. And the key to running an efficient practice, or the perfect practice, as we like to call it, is to be prepared. Okay, so find time. It might just be 10 or 15 minutes during the week to jot down your notes and create some sort of a practice plan. We're going to walk you guys through a practice plan a little bit later, but creating a practice plan for a 90-minute practice once a week really only takes a few minutes. And it's utilizing your assistant coaches, it's utilizing the other volunteer parents that are with you, but just making sure that when you get to practice, you're not all looking at each other, wondering, what are we going to do today? So again, there's a lot of key elements that go into it, but the first one is just making sure that you're prepared. With 90 minutes once a week, we have to make sure that we keep the kids moving, we keep them fast paced. And the reason we like to do that is because baseball and softball are known as the boring sports. We've heard it for years now. And the reason baseball and softball are the boring sports is because in a 2-hour game, the ball's only in flight for a couple minutes. All right, as opposed to lacrosse or soccer or basketball, where it's nonstop action. So it's our job as coaches to teach our players the game within the game. What's going on in between pitches? Do the players understand the runner? Do they understand the situation? When coaches go out for mound visits, there's so many little things that go on throughout a game that it's our job as coaches that we teach them. We teach them the game within the game. We teach them the life lessons that both of these games have to offer. And, it's really important for us to educate them on all of those things. So we're going to take you through a sample practice plan here first, a 90-minute practice plan, and exactly how we're going to break it down. So if you guys can take a look at this practice plan here, it's always going to start off with an introduction, a topic for the day, and a lot of times we like to use something called the word of the day. So it might be something like hustle. It might be something like teamwork. It might be hard work, but always give them a topic of the day. And again, that goes back to my life lessons that this game has to offer. So introduction, plan for the day, expectations for the day. From there, you go through your dynamic warm-up. You go through your throwing program. One thing we like to do is during the dynamic warm-up, we assign a leader for the day. So have a different player lead the dynamic warm-up each day. It gets the kids moving. We all see those kids on the team that love to talk. We see the kids on the team that don't like to talk very much. So keeping them, working together. You got to get different kids stepping up each day to kind of be that captain of the day. From there, you see we have on there 5 minutes of introduction of signs. So going over your signs weekly is super important. We know these kids forget from week to week. So just recapping the signs. We love to go into a base running circuit first. A lot of coaches like to put base running last, but we like to do it first. It's such an important part of the game. We'll get into that a little bit later. And then we break up into stations. One thing that we talk about a ton is breaking up our kids into small groups. From there, we go into our situational defense. And then from there, we go into our team building or competition. So this is a sample practice plan of something that you can design on a weekly basis that you'll see the practice goes so much smoother. It goes so much faster. The kids are more engaged. And I'm really going to talk about the breaking them up into stations now piece, because this is something that we really emphasize in all of our coaches clinics. We really work on it in our classes, our programs, and especially our coaches clinics when the coaches come in. So when we talk about creating stations at practice, we have to make sure that we break the kids up into 3 groups of 4. How many times have you guys gone to a practice where you see 12 kids standing in a line, one kid's getting his work in while the 11 are watching. All right, now baseball or softball, that's boring. There's a lot of standing around. So we like to break the kids up either by skill level, by ability level, or by position, and to really keep them moving. Instead of having one group of 12, we have 3 groups of 4. The kids are moving. They're getting a lot more reps. It's a lot more fast-paced. And you do 3 10-minute stations. Before you know it, you're 30 minutes into practice. The kids are in a much safer and controlled environment. They're moving fast. They're getting their reps, and practice starts to fly by. Duke's going to talk about it in a little bit, but getting to practice where the coaches just look at each other like, hey, what should we do today? And then sending the kids down the line to warm up. You got balls flying all over the place. It's not ideal. All right. The parents are going to be looking at you saying these guys have no idea what they're doing. So, the stations is key. I talked about breaking them up by ability level. And another reason why that's important is safety. A lot of these rec teams, you'll have a really good player and a really bad player. So the last thing you want on the first day of practice is to hit a ground ball to your shortstop. He's got a rocket for an arm and he fires one to the first baseman. He gets hit in the head and now he's done for the season. He doesn't want to play anymore. He's afraid of the ball. So, when we break them up by ability level, you can also work on different areas of the game. You might be taking those 4 guys that don't know how to catch and teaching them the basics of how to catch with their fingers up versus their fingers down. You might be taking those better players and focusing on the more in-depth stuff, like, getting a dirt ball read or, working on cuts and relays or how to field a backhand. So breaking them up by ability level is key. Creating as many stations as possible is key. And also utilizing the entire field. We're going to pull up a field utilization chart here that I think is really important. And for us as coaches, a lot of times we're in small spaces or you get out to a field and there's just a lot of open area. And we want to make sure we make the most of that field or that area we're on. So this sample field utilization chart here, we have a 1 station at home plate. That's our base running station. You have 4 kids there. You have an infield station out by the third base shortstop area. They could be working on glove work, footwork, ladder drills, timing drills, hopping on the skateboard. We have an outfield station out in left field. They can be working on basic pop fly communication or technique or drop steps or footwork. And then we have a hitting station in the cage where we have the cage broken up into multiple stations and the kids are getting their work in. But we like using this utilization chart because we don't like going to practice where all 12 kids are stuck in the same spot. Break them up, move them around, spread them out. And I'm sure a lot of you parents out there have a couple buddies on the team that like to goof off during practice. They're always joking around. Well, break those kids up. I do it for my own team. I'll send a couple of the knuckleheads in one group and their buddies in the other group. This way there's no distractions. There's no kids, goofing off or picking on one another. So by ability level, by maybe their ability to focus or skill level, and really moving them around, utilizing the entire field is key, and it's really important when you're trying to draw up that perfect practice plan for you. Another topic I have on here is, what's the best way to create a practice plan? For me, I keep a note card in my pocket. So during games, I'm taking notes. All right. So after the game, I can go over with our guys. Hey, we did a really good job at dirt ball reads today. We didn't do a really good job at cuts and relays. We didn't do a good job at pop fly communication. And we struggled with pitchers fielding practice. So now I know these are the 3 things I need to work on next week. And my practice plan is basically created for me. Now my only job as a coach is to communicate with my assistant coaches, let them know, all right, Coach Duke, you're going to run the infield station. Coach Dom, you're going to run the base running station. And I'm going to work with the outfielders on pop fly communication. And before you know it, practice is done. You're an hour and a half in. The kids are getting a lot more out of it. It's a lot more efficient than showing up and trying to figure it out on the fly. We do it in our classes. We do it on our private lessons. And we really do it with our teams here. Another topic I have on here is using props. And I'm going to pass that off to Coach Duke. He's going to talk about the importance of using props and having as many materials at practice as possible.
So it's really important to have props because sometimes if there's only 1 coach, 2 coach, 1 bucket of balls, probably 24 balls in that bucket, and you have 12 kids, how do you keep that practice efficient and fun? So some of the props that we like to use is we have an agility ladder. So when kids are working on different drills, we can add the agility ladder into the practice, whether it be for warm-ups or whether it be for helping our players work on footwork. We also use smush balls. Smush balls are really soft, pliable balls that you can use for anything. For throwing, you can hit with them, you can catch them, you can do all kinds of stuff. So having 24 smush balls in your bucket's awesome. Also having multiple buckets, whether you use a crate or you use a bucket, whatever you use, that way each coach can have a small bucket of either baseballs or smush balls or wiffle balls, whatever you guys are using, opposed to only having one bucket that you're carrying from station to station. We also use a set of drop down bases. So we always, if we're doing a base running station, we can put drop down bases down, and that way 4 or 5 guys can go at the same exact time. Or we put down drop down cones, little small cones, soccer cones that you can put out so that the players know where to go. So when you're doing a warm up, they know where they're going. Or if you want to break them up into stations using those cones, you can use the cones for bases. You can use the cones to start people in certain areas. You can use cones for targets, whether you're doing a bunting drill and they're trying to hit the cone. So for competitions and stuff like that, utilizing cones are great as well. And also make sure you guys have a dry erase board or a clipboard that you can draw stuff on, because sometimes kids aren't going to understand what you're saying, but drawing it on the dry erase board can really sometimes help connect with you as a coach and them as a player. So as many props as you can have, put them in a backpack, put them in a bucket, have your smush balls, have your wiffle balls, have your tee, have your drop down bases, and have your cones. And those are some great ways to help add some fun into your practice routine.
Yeah, I think the fun is really important. And that's why we always try to finish with some sort of team building activity, some fun competition. It could be a cuts and relays drill. It can be a base running competition. It could be a coach pitch scrimmage. But whether it's fun, it's team building, or it's competitive, you always try to finish on a high note. And we like to make the kids compete at practice. You don't want them to just kind of go through the motions at practice and then all of a sudden have to flip that switch when the game starts. We try to put that pressure on them in practice, create some sort of a competitive atmosphere to really get their competitiveness ready for the game. And again, it could be anything. It could be a fun, a water balloon home run derby. It could be anything to keep them fun or keep it fun for them and make them look forward to coming back to that next practice. So again, be prepared, be creative with the stations, break them up by ability level, by skill level, utilize the entire field, utilize your assistant coaches. And again, there's a lot of ingredients that go into running that perfect practice, but it all starts with us as coaches doing our best to be prepared and writing down a game plan. Again, don't show up to practice and just assume your coaches are going to be able to man their own station. You guys will just figure it out on the fly. It doesn't work that way. We've seen coaches try it and it fails. So it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It could be on the back of a notebook or on an index card, but have some sort of a plan ready when you show up for your practice. Again, you get 90 minutes a week. We want to make the most use and most efficient use of our time.
Awesome. So let's get into some playing time issues. This is a really fragile topic. Coaches, players, parents, directors, let's talk through this because it's going to happen and we have to be ready for it. So we often get asked the question by a bunch of parents, what do I do if my son or daughter isn't playing? How do I go about talking to the coach? So let's dive into some of those topics and let's talk through this. So the lack of playing time is one of the toughest and hottest issues for coaches, because me being a parent, I'm going through it with my kids as a parent. Also being a former professional athlete, was on the bench. Coaching now, I'm putting people on the bench, and running an organization like this, it's at the top level. So all different levels from all the different phases, we're going to be talking about how to handle this tough situation. And a lot of times we ask parents, what do you feel when your son's or daughter's on the bench and they feel like they're embarrassed, they feel humiliated? And the first thing that comes to my mind is, why as a parent are you feeling embarrassed? You feeling embarrassed as a parent, what is that telling your son or daughter? Some parents actually say that they'll leave a game if they know their kid's not playing. Well, if that's the case, then you're pretty much telling your son or daughter that if you're not playing, then it's worthless. It's not even worth even being on a team, so it's not all about playing time. So let's, as a parent, you want to protect your child. So you want to fix the problem and figure it out. But you really can't just figure it out or fix it. So we're going to slow down a minute. We're going to talk about the nature of the game. So we put together a playing time chart, and here it is right here. So if you look at the playing time chart, what does it say? At T-ball, they're 6 to 8 years old. they're 5 to 6 year olds. There's 6 to 8 players on a team. How many are playing? Everybody's playing. Where do they all play? They all play in the infield because there's only 6 of them. How many guys are sitting? 0. Now they move up in levels. Now they're playing in Little League or recreational ball. There's 10 to 12 players on a team. How many are playing? All of them. Why? Because they put 4 or 5 coaches in the players in the outfield, and the entire team plays. They play the infield. Now we're introducing the outfield. And how many people sit? 0. So now it's Traveler Middle School. So by the time they hit to be 12 or 13, some of them have never even sat the bench before. So when you're in Traveler Middle School, there's 12 to 16 kids on the team. How many are playing? Between 9 or 10 now. Not everybody, which means 5 kids are sitting on the bench. Once you go to high school, there's 15 to 22 kids on a team. 9 are playing. 6 to 11 kids are on the bench. And in college, there's up to 35 guys on a roster. 9 are playing. 26 of them are sitting on the bench. So it's kind of it's difficult because the way the game works, it's almost backwards. We're teaching the kids when they first start that everybody plays. But then as you get better, more and more people are actually sitting on the bench. So what we need to do is we need to help our coaches communicate with the parents so that they're communicating with the players as well, kind of like how the whole evolution of the game is actually going to happen. So everybody has a part in the game. Everybody has a role. Coaches, you have a role. Players, you have a role. And parents, you have a role. Coaches, it can be a struggle, right? It can be a struggle. You have all these parents that like you, all the kids are playing, and then the second that you put their son on the bench, it's like the claws come out and it gets very uncomfortable, right? That's just what happens in the game. So depending on your level of coaching, if you're playing rec, you're out there to develop. Wins and losses don't really matter. You're trying to teach them how to play the game. Well, once you're a high school or a college coach, your livelihood depends on winning. So you're now playing possibly some coaches, the 9 best kids every game, all the time. You're winning. So that's the part that becomes very challenging is just that. So no player likes to sit on the bench, right? No player likes to sit on the bench. It's boring on the bench. There's not much to do. Maybe you're embarrassed. You're there with your peers and you're like, oh, I'm the one that's on the bench. And what we need to do is we need to help bridge that gap. The next time your son or daughter is not playing, you have to ask them this simple question. Did you get to impact the game today? Did you impact the game today? Because if your son or daughter doesn't play, you don't even know what to say to them. How'd the game go? You're not sure if they played. So you're like, if you ask them if they played and they say no, that's uncomfortable. So how can you impact the game in a positive way? By being a good teammate. Possibly, maybe you get put in to run the bases. Well, did you steal a base? Did you score? Did you help the team? Maybe it's warming up the outfielders in between innings. It's throwing with them. Maybe it's helping being the first base coach. Most high schools, teams, and even some of the travel teams, they have one coach. So maybe it's running out and being the first base coach and helping the team that way. Maybe you got a pinch hit single. Did you have positive energy? Did you keep the energy high throughout the game? If you're on a team, everyone has a role. The other thing we talk about is getting better, right? If you're on the bench, you have to get better. So when you're talking to the players, hey guys, we have to get better. What can we do as a player to get better so that I can get out on the field, right? Good coaches are going to tell you what you need to do. Some coaches might not say anything. So we need to take it upon ourselves as a player to go up to the coach and say, hey coach, what can I be working on in my game to help the team out? What can I be doing? So parents, for you to step in, it's not productive at the higher levels. If you're talking about only rec and your son's 8 or 9 and you have some questions for the coach, like, of course. But once high school and college come in, it's a totally different ball game. So I think it's important that as parents, we kind of change the roles of they have a game, my son's in the game. It's how did you impact the game today? And that'll give you something to talk about. Because a lot of the players also say, if I sit on the bench, sometimes my parents don't even ask me how the game went. They don't even ask me about the game. So it's almost like you're alienating the whole situation opposed to, hey, how'd you impact the game? So that'll give you something as a parent. That'll give you a solution to be able to have that healthy conversation with the kids. So, and as a coach, what can we do to get the kids in the game more? Have kids play multiple positions. That's the importance of, kids being able to play other positions really helps them out, because maybe Johnny plays left field, but he can also play a little bit of first. And maybe we're up by a lot of runs and we can add some guys in and plug and play. Maybe every third game you're starting one of the guys that maybe sits on the bench in a team that's not as good, or there's a lot of ways that you can kind of work out and get some extra guys in the game to help keeping the team as a team, and also make it really important and talk about those guys and the importance of the dugout responsibilities. What else can you be doing? You can be watching the pitcher, seeing what kind of patterns he's getting into. Is he throwing a curveball after he gets ahead with the fastball? You can, keep the energy high. There's a lot of things that you can be doing on the bench. When you watch the College World Series, you see everybody on the fence. Even though those 26 people are sitting on the bench, they act as if they're part of the game. So be part of the game, have fun with the game. Coach Steve, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of really good topics that Duke just brought up, but I think it comes down to communication and expectations. So us as coaches, I'm going through it right now. I have to communicate with the players as to why they're not playing, why they're going to be a substitute that game, maybe why I bumped them down in the order that day. Another thing is I might have a hitter that's batting third or fourth and he's struggling. If I just bump him down to eighth and don't say a word to him, he gets in the car, his parents are blaming me. Why are you batting eighth? Coach doesn't know what he's doing. Instead, I'll look at the kid and say, hey, man, you're struggling right now. I'm going to put you down to seventh, eighth in the lineup. You might get some more fastballs. We're just trying to boost your confidence up. And then he gets in the car. His parents says, why are you batting eighth? And he says, oh, Coach Steve just wanted me to get a little bit more fastballs, take some pressure off me. It felt like every time I was getting up and it was in a pressure situation. So it's our job as coaches to really over-communicate. Communicate with the players on, hey, you're not going to start this game today, but you're going to be in the lineup tomorrow. All right, just make sure you're ready to go by the third or fourth inning. We always pride ourselves on development. So at the younger ages, I bat 12 from 9U through 12U. I'll bat 12. Let them all play. It frees me up a little bit as a coach because we're allowed to have free defensive replacements. So I can shuffle the field all over the place. I don't have to worry about designated hitters. I don't want to have to worry about re-entering rules. Every tournament's a little bit different with the rules, but it frees me up and allows me to move kids all over the place. But what happens is once you get to playoffs, once you get to the championship, if I'm batting 12 and the other team's batting 9, we're at a serious disadvantage, right? Because I'm playing everybody. That guy's only batting 9. It takes us a lot longer to get through that entire lineup. So that gets me to the expectations point. The expectations that I lay out is if everybody makes the playoffs, we're going to bat all 12. But once we get to the playoffs, I owe it to the best 9, 10, maybe 11 guys on the team. We have to crunch that lineup down just a little bit to give ourselves an opportunity to win games. Because at the end of the year, if you have nothing but losses on your record, you're going to end up losing the better guys on your team. Sure, you were fair and you got everybody in, but that's not real life, right? Duke just talked about it. As you get older, those rosters grow and the lineup shrinks, which makes it really challenging. And I don't care if you're the best player on the team right now, at some point in your career, you're going to be sitting the bench. I batted third my entire life, all through high school. I got to college. I didn't play as a freshman. It took me 3-4 weeks to get into the lineup. But what I did was I sat at the end of the dugout. I kept my mouth shut. I cheered on my teammates. And I just made sure I was ready to play. Because in that situation, a role player, for the first time, I had two options. I could either sit down there, I could complain, I could point fingers and say, well, look, he just made 2 errors. I should be there. He struck out twice today. I should be in the lineup. But I'm taking energy away and focus away from making sure I'm ready when coach looks at me in the 8th inning and says, hey, Steve, you got a pinch hit. Now I'm not ready. If I'm sitting down there complaining and pointing fingers and telling the coach he doesn't know what he's doing, looking at my parents in the stands complaining, I'm not ready and I'm not focused for that pinch hit at bat. So like Duke mentioned, warming kids up in between innings, staying ready, staying loose. There's so many things that go into making a good team, and having good role players is a big part of it. So again, there's a lot of questions that go into this. Are you coaching a rec team? Well, if you're coaching a rec team, bat all 12. If you're coaching a travel ball team, but everybody makes the playoffs, try to bat the entire lineup. But once you get to playoffs, once you get to the championship, we have to shrink the lineup down a little bit to give ourselves a competitive chance, as opposed to going into the game batting 12 while the other guy's batting 9, and we're at a disadvantage before the game even starts. Communication expectations, talk to the players, talk to the parents ahead of the season or before the season even starts, and really lay it all out there. These are our goals for the season. We're trying to get 1 through 12 better. We're trying to develop each player on this team, and we're going to do it, but we're also going to compete. So we're going to do it in practice. We're going to give guys an opportunity to earn jobs. And, that gets me to another thing. If you just bat 12 all the time, everybody's in the lineup no matter what. Nobody has any drive or any, hunger to fight for that starting spot. But all of a sudden you're batting 9 or 10, somebody's struggling, but somebody else is working harder at practice. They're fighting for that starting job. You give them a chance to earn a job and really know what it's like to fight for a spot, as opposed to just showing up every day saying, oh, I'm in the lineup no matter what. If I don't leg out that infield single, it doesn't matter. I'm going to be in the lineup tomorrow. If I don't try to get a good dirt ball read or go first to second, on a bobbled ball in the outfield, it doesn't matter. I'm going to be in the lineup tomorrow. But really teaching them the game and teaching them real baseball, real softball at a young age. Again, focusing on development at the younger ages, but really pushing them to really work hard for that starting spot as they get older is important.
I think another thing also, since we're talking about parents, players, and coaches, we encourage the parents to talk to the players to say, hey, go talk to Coach Steve and see what you can do to get better, or tell maybe you want to play a little bit more first base, and Coach Steve, what can I do as a player to get better at first base, or so parents, it's not even though you want to be the ones that call the coach or write emails to the coach, or it's not received too well on the coaching side when the parent's the one doing it, because then you're thinking to yourself, was the parent the one that wants them to play first? Does the parent want it more than the kid? But when the kid comes up, hey, I always respect that. Like, hey, coach, can I talk to you for a minute? Of course, Johnny. Yeah, what's up? Hey, I was just, I really want to get into the lineup, and I'm just, what can I do? What can I do to get better? And here's a line. And usually a coach will have a whole list of things. Here's a few things. I think you're doing a great job. You're working hard. And the coach is going to give you, is going to give you feedback. That's what you want. That shows that you do care, that you are interested. But it's not the parent's duty to be the one doing the communicating. It's your job to encourage the player to be the one. If they really truly want it, then the player will then send the email or reach out and make the phone call or come see you after or before practice. So I think that's also a very important thing, because a lot of people are afraid to, oh man, I don't want to talk to the coach. Well, that's what the player should be the one talking to the coach. Do you have
I think that is awesome. It's so important for the player to do it. Parents and players, there are two things, if your player is not playing, that are going to guarantee that they continue to not play. And that's the parents calling and comparing other players to their son and why they should be in the lineup, and basically telling us why your player should be batting second instead of ninth, or why your player should be starting over so-and-so. And number two is when players, if you're on the bench, sitting at the end of the bench with your head down and sulking and complaining, is a guaranteed way for a coach not to want to put you in. So those are two things that Duke just mentioned. Go to the coach. We always have an open door policy. Coach, what can I do to get better? What can I do to help this team win? Those are awesome. That's going to make me want to get that kid into the game. But when I get phone calls and text messages from parents, and then I look at the end of the dugout and the kid's sulking and he's talking to his mom through the fence, those are two things that are going to make me not want to put that player in the game. So again, get yourself ready, show up every day like you're going to be in the lineup. And when you're not, be ready, because your number will get called on. Spots are going to open up. Kids are going to get injured. Kids are going to go through a little bit of a slump. Spots will open up. So you just have to make sure you're ready to go. And again, not pointing fingers, not comparing yourself to other people, just asking the coach, what can I do to be better? What can I do to get into the lineup? What can I do to help this team win? Those are the kind of comments and questions that a player can ask a coach, that guaranteed ways for a coach to want to get them back in.
And, as Steve's talking, I'm thinking about something, and that's, nothing fires up a parent more than watching an all-star player come 15 or 20 minutes late to practice, or they're playing soccer and they only show up on game day, and the coach starts that kid at shortstop, hits him third. Coaches, set those expectations early. Let your parents know what your expectation is for your team. Hey, if you guys show up late, this is going to happen. If you're okay with, depending on the level that you're teaching or coaching, if you're okay with them playing soccer during the week and only coming on game day, well, then make sure the parents know that. If you're okay with the kid's coming late to practice and you're still going to play him and that doesn't really matter to you, well, set that expectation. But I think most of the coaches that are listening right now do want to teach the life lessons of being on time, being early, making sure that you're making this team a priority, making sure that when it's in season that the kids are being, they are there. So that way, if Johnny comes 15 minutes late and your rule is, well, he came 15 minutes late, but that's okay. And now he's starting. And all of a sudden Mikey comes 15 minutes late and you say, oh, since you're late, you're going to bat last, and what you do for one, you should do for all. And that's a very important message that you're sending your team. Sometimes you have to make an example of the best kid in order to get the respect from the rest of the team.
Spot on right there. I think we're going to hop right into our third topic of the day, which is communication with your players and assuming that they know nothing. All right, that might sound kind of harsh, but we have to, as coaches, assume that our players don't know anything. So how do players learn? Players learn three different ways. They learn by seeing, by hearing, and by feeling. So you might have certain players on the team that might just see. They might watch a video. They might watch you explain something. They might see a player do it, and it clicks for them. Other players are good just hearing it. So you might just be able to explain a drill to them, explain a situation, and it clicks for them. Other players have to feel it, and that might mean coaches, you putting them in a position, this is how we're going to field a ground ball. This is our launch position at the plate. This is our balance position on the mound. So coaches, we have to do a good job at teaching the same thing multiple different ways. I know we want to help, and I know sometimes it's easier, especially coaches that have been doing it for a long time, to get stuck in their ways and be repetitive and teach the same thing over and over. But we have to get creative. We have to be able to teach the same exact drill or skill in multiple different ways. That's gonna work with each player, because everybody's gonna learn a little bit differently. Everybody's gonna soak things in differently. And as a coach, you'll start to get a feel for it as the season goes on. No, I have to explain it to Matthew a little bit differently than I have to explain it to Michael. So seeing, hearing, feeling. Coaches, be creative. All right, create as many drills and as many stations as possible. And one thing that I found myself doing lately, the more I've coached, is I ask a lot of questions. I think in the beginning, I was a younger coach. I just finished playing. I had all this knowledge and I wanted to help. So I would always just try to, coach, and not ask many questions. And I find myself now taking a step back, asking the player, hey, what do you think right here? Or what did you feel right there on that swing? Or what's your approach during that at bat? Because we can learn a lot from our players. We can learn a lot about, their mentality, about their confidence level, about the way their minds work. And I think it's going to help us help them a lot quicker. And it's going to be a lot easier understanding what's going on in that player's head, as opposed to us just shouting something out and assuming that they soaked it all in. So seeing, hearing, feeling, get a feel for your players, get a feel for their personalities. Some guys need to be pushed harder. Some kids need to be coddled a little bit more. Personalities are different. Obviously, the talent's different. But I can't stress enough the importance of being creative and trying to teach the same thing in a variety of different ways. I tell our coaches all the time in here, if you were 10 years old and you just heard what you heard from yourself, would it sink in? Because we know so many things and we have so much knowledge and so much experience in this game that we just assume, oh, it's going to click for them. But meanwhile, it probably took us 10 years to learn that. So slow things down. We say dummy it down sometimes, but really make it simple for them. Give them, different drills and skills, and teach it in fun ways. Put them in a position where they either have to do it or they're going to fail. I know, you experienced it a little bit last week, coaching your son's team, where you were yelling out something to the catcher. Yeah. You want to explain that? I thought that was funny.
Yeah, so I was coaching a 10-year-old game, and we were calling signs, and so I was telling the catcher, if I tap my left knee, it's inside, my right knee's outside, keeping it really easy to kind of get him to understand how to start calling pitches. So it was a 2-0 count, so then I just put my hand like this, and I was like, split the plate. And he immediately looked at me, and he's like, Mike, split the plate. He calls timeout, and he's like, what does split the plate mean? I'm like, oh, right, that's on me, because I thought it was pretty simple. Like, split the plate means throw it right down the middle, like split the plate. But to a 10-year-old, he had no clue what I was talking about. So I respect the fact that he said to me, what does that mean? Because a lot of times your players aren't going to say anything, and they're just going to say, okay. And next thing you know, they're just doing whatever they think you mean or whatever. So make sure you you keep it simple. Make sure you ask them questions. Steve talked a little bit earlier before about having a team captain. And it's fun because when you have a team captain taking them through warm-ups, you listen to hear how they communicate to each other. They might call the side shuffle something totally different than what you call it, or the karaoke, or any of those things. And another thing that we do after practice or after a camp is we'll teach a skill, and then we'll have the player come up and say, okay, Johnny, I want you to teach everybody what the fielding triangle is. And then you watch Johnny, and the kids love it. Or who can show us how to catch a fly ball properly? And then Mikey might be like, me. And then you're listening how he's talking about what they're doing, maybe the animal that they're making. Oh, there's a bird, and you're covering, or they're talking about. It's almost like you can then understand what their verbiage is and how they communicate. Maybe you said a certain thing, and they said something totally opposite, but it looked exactly the same. And so good coaches use that, especially when you're dealing with 6, 7, 8. You can't talk like you would talk to your college team to an 8-year-old team. It just doesn't work. So as much as you can, you should listen and let them talk, because it'll really help you.
Yeah, I've said it for a while. I think the best players in the world take bits and pieces from all of their coaches. I look back on my career, like I took a little bit from my college coach. I took some from my high school coach. I took some from Coach Duke when I trained here, and I made my way of doing it. And I think it's important for all players to do that. We as coaches don't have it all figured out. If you meet a coach that says he has it all figured out, don't trust them, because we're still learning every day. We're still learning new things and new training ideas, and trying to better ourselves and educate ourselves as much as we can. The game evolves. We have to evolve as coaches. So being able to adapt to different situations, being able to teach the same skill in a variety of different ways, and really challenging yourself to get creative and think, and okay, it doesn't stick with them here. What else can I tell them? And sometimes I'll throw things at my hitting lessons, especially my older guys, and I'll say, think about this. And then a couple swings later, I'll say, what do you think about feeling this? And then at the end of the lesson, I'll ask them, what sunk in today? Like, what helped? Like, what was the one thing I said that really stuck? And they'll repeat something to me. So now I know right away, all right, next week we're gonna touch back on that. We're gonna get back to feeling that, instead of maybe me just shouting out 15 different things and nothing really sinks in. So really communicate, talk to your players. Like Duke said, listen a lot, right? Don't be in such a rush to overcoach. We had a coach one time back in Philadelphia use the term power coaching. And it's when coaches want to help, or maybe they're just trying to overdo it, and we've all seen it. We've seen the third base coach look at the batter at home plate and say, hands up, head down, turn your hips, stay balanced, keep your head on the. That player's thinking like a robot in the batter's box. There's nothing competitive about that. We want to take practice for us. Practice is our time. The game time is the time for the players to go enjoy it. So, take a step back. Don't be a power coach. Listen more. Practice time is our time. Game time is their time. So if it's something that's going on in between the innings, maybe go down there, sit next to them and say, hey, you look like you're doing this. But don't stand out at the third base coach's box yelling out 15 different things at once, because their dad's standing behind the on-deck circle doing the exact same thing. And now there's a player at home plate thinking like a robot. He's not thinking like an athlete anymore. So, I think we covered a lot of really good topics today. I think running the perfect practice is huge. It's something that we love to talk about. It's part of the reason why we started Dominate the Diamond in the first place, is teaching coaches how to run efficient practices. The expectations of playing time is another topic that, gets a lot of controversy, and a lot of people start bashing each other back and forth on whether to bat 9 or whether to bat 12. And there's so many different things, so many different questions that come up and different variables when you're talking about the expectations of playing time. And then understanding that your players know nothing, or assuming that they know nothing, and being able to teach certain drills or skills in a variety of different ways. So I think there's a lot of really good stuff covered today.
And always make sure that in the comments, whether you're on YouTube, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on Instagram, put the comments in there, so that if you have any questions about drills, if you have questions about something that you might not understand what we're saying, or you want us to explain something different, make sure you go on those different platforms, communicate, because then that's what we use all week long to shoot videos that we then blast out through all the social media platforms. So we hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks so much for coming out today. We'll continue to dive into some awesome topics like player development, communicating with parents, running efficient practices, how to keep your players engaged. So Make sure you can also go on our dominatethediamond.com, click on the free resources. You'll be able to download the free perfect practice plan, the field utilization charts, some codes of conduct. There's a bunch of awesome free things that you can download on there that'll really help you out as coaches. So we'll see you next week. Go out and dominate the diamond today.